You were kind. That is where this story begins. Not with anger, not with revenge, not with some dramatic moment where everything changed overnight. No, it begins with kindness. Your kindness. The kind of kindness that made people feel safe around you. The kind of kindness that made people come to you when they were broken. The kind of kindness that made people trust you with their worst moments, their ugliest truths, their heaviest secrets. You carried all of it. You carried it because you believed that was your purpose. You believed that being kind was the highest thing a person could be. You believed that if you just kept giving, kept understanding, kept forgiving, eventually the world would give that same energy back to you. But it didn't. Did it? Let me say that again. It didn't. And right now, wherever you are, in your room, on the bus, at your desk, lying in bed at 2 in the morning, you already know what I'm about to say. Because you have lived it. You gave your patience to people who had no patience for you. You gave your loyalty to people who replaced you the moment someone more convenient came along. You gave your silence, your beautiful, disciplined silence, to people who mistook it for weakness. And the worst part? You kept giving, even after they showed you who they were. Even after they proved again and again that your kindness was not a gift they valued. It was a resource they consumed. You kept giving, because that is what kind people do. They give, and they give, and they give, until there is nothing left, until the person doing the giving disappears, and no one notices. No one notices when the kind person goes quiet. No one sends a message. No one checks in. No one asks, "Are you okay?" Because they were never paying attention to you. They were paying attention to what you could do for them. That is the truth no one tells you about kindness. It is not always a virtue. Sometimes it is a trap, and you walked into it with your arms wide open. Now, before we go any further, I need you to understand something about this video. This is not a motivational speech. I am not going to stand here and tell you to smile more. I am not going to tell you that everything happens for a reason. I am not going to give you some hollow phrase about loving yourself that sounds beautiful on a poster, but means nothing at 3 in the morning when you are staring at the ceiling, wondering where it all went wrong. No, this video is a mirror, and mirrors do not lie. For the next 80 minutes, I am going to walk you through exactly what happened to you, step by step, layer by layer. I am going to name the things you felt, but could never put into words. I'm going to explain why they treated you the way they did, not because you deserved it, but because your kindness made it easy for them. And then I am going to show you what the ancient Stoic philosophers, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, already knew 2,000 years ago. That kindness without boundaries is self-destruction. That silence without intention is surrender. That patience without standards is permission. And that the most dangerous person in any room is not the loud one, not the aggressive one, not the one throwing punches or raising their voice. The most dangerous person in the room is the kind one. After they stop being kind, let us go back. Let us go back to the beginning, not the beginning of this video, the beginning of you. Think about who you were before the world taught you to shrink. There was a version of you, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 10, maybe 20, who believed the best in everyone, who walked into rooms and genuinely wanted people to succeed, who listened, who helped, who stayed late, who showed up early, who forgave things that should never have been forgiven. That version of you was real. That version of you was not performing. You were not pretending to be kind. You were kind. It was in your bones. It was in the way you spoke It was in the way you listened, not waiting for your turn to talk, but actually listening, hearing, absorbing. People felt safe around you because you were safe. And that was beautiful. But here is the problem. You did not understand something that Epictetus understood 20 centuries ago. Epictetus said this: "Listen carefully. It is not events that disturb people. It is their judgments about events." And what was your judgment? Your judgment was this: if I am kind enough, if I am patient enough, if I am understanding enough, they will eventually treat me the same way. That was your judgment. That was your belief. That was the invisible contract you wrote in your head and signed with your heart. But here is what nobody told you. They never signed it. They never agreed to your terms. They never promised to return what you gave. You created a deal in your mind that only you were committed to. And when they broke the terms of a contract they never agreed to, you blamed yourself. Not them. Yourself. You thought, maybe I was not kind enough. Maybe I need to give more. Maybe I need to be more patient, more understanding, more forgiving. And so you gave more. And they took more. And the cycle continued, and continued, and continued, until one day you looked in the mirror and you did not recognize the person staring back at you. I want you to sit with that image for a moment. You, standing in front of a mirror, looking at your own face and feeling nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even frustration, just emptiness. That is the moment this video is really about. Not the betrayal, not the people who used you, not the relationships that drained you, or the friendships that disappeared, or the family members who treated your kindness like it was owed to them. This video is about that moment. The moment you went numb. The moment your body and your mind finally said, "We cannot carry this anymore." Because that moment, that quiet, invisible, unremarkable moment that no one else saw or cared about, was the single most important moment of your life. That was the moment the old you died. Now the world does not tell you about this moment. Movies do not show it. Books barely mention it. Motivational speakers skip right over it because it is not dramatic. It is not cinematic. There is no music swelling in the background. There is no audience cheering. There is no villain standing in front of you that you can point at and say, "You did this to me." It is just you, alone, in a room, feeling nothing. And that is the most terrifying thing a human being can experience, not pain. Pain at least tells you that you are alive. Pain has a direction. Pain has a source. But numbness is the body's way of saying we have absorbed too much. We are shutting down to survive. And if you are watching this video right now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You remember the moment. Maybe you do not remember the exact date. Maybe you do not remember what triggered it. But you remember the feeling. Or rather, you remember the absence of feeling. The flatness. The gray. Where everything that used to matter, the friendships, the work, the goals, the love, suddenly felt like noise. Background static. Meaningless. That was not depression. I mean, it might have been. And if it was, please talk to someone. A professional. A friend. Anyone. But for many of you, it was not clinical depression. It was something else. It was the death of a belief system. The belief that being kind would protect you. The belief that giving everything would be enough. The belief that people would treat you the way you treated them. That entire operating system, the one you had been running since childhood, crashed. And when a belief system dies, the person built on top of it dies too. That is what happened to you. The old you did not leave. The old you did not grow out of it. The old you died. And something else, something you had never met before, started to wake up in the darkness. Marcus Aurelius wrote something in his journal that he never intended for anyone else to read. He wrote it for himself, late at night, alone, after dealing with betrayal, after dealing with people he trusted who lied to his face, after dealing with advisors who manipulated him, generals who disobeyed him, and a public that criticized him despite his service. He wrote this: "The best revenge is to not be like your enemy." Now, most people hear that quote, and they think it means just be nice and let it go. But that is not what Marcus Aurelius meant. Read it again in your mind. The best revenge is to not be like your enemy. He was not saying forgive and forget. He was not saying turn the other cheek. He was not saying be kind to the people who hurt you. He was saying something much more dangerous. He was saying become something they cannot comprehend. Your enemy is reactive. You become still. Your enemy is loud. You become silent. Your enemy is emotional. You become strategic. Your enemy is desperate for attention. You become invisible until you choose to be seen. That is what Marcus Aurelius meant. He was not asking you to be kind. He was asking you to be transformed. And transformation does not come from comfort. It does not come from forgiveness. It does not come from understanding the other person's point of view. Transformation comes from one place and one place only: pain. The specific kind of pain that comes when you realize that the person you were was not strong enough for the world you live in. And here is the part they do not want you to know. That realization is not a tragedy. It is a gift. Let me explain why. Because right now some of you are sitting there thinking, but I liked who I was. I liked being kind. I liked being the person people could count on. And I hear you. But let me ask you something. Did they count on you? Or did they count on your inability to say no? Did they value your kindness? Or did they value the fact that your kindness came without a price? Did they love you, or did they love what you gave them? These are not easy questions, and I am not asking them to hurt you. I am asking them because Epictetus asked them 2,000 years ago, and the answer changed everything. Epictetus was born a slave. Let me say that again so it sinks in. He was born a slave. He had no rights, no freedom, no choice. His body did not belong to him. His time did not belong to him. His life did not belong to him. And yet this man became one of the most powerful thinkers in human history. Not because he escaped his chains, but because he realized something that most free people never understand. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." You are not in chains. No one owns your body. No one controls where you go or what you do. But are you free? Are you free when you cannot say no to someone who drains you? Are you free when you spend your energy maintaining relationships that give nothing back? Are you free when your kindness is not a choice, but a compulsion? Something you do because you are terrified of what will happen if you stop. That is not kindness. That is captivity with a smile. And Epictetus would look at you the same way he looked at free men in Rome, who were enslaved by their own desires, their own fears, their own need for approval. And he would say, "You call yourself free. You cannot even say no to someone who does not respect you. You cannot even walk away from a table where you are not being fed. I was a slave in body, but you are a slave in mind. And that is the worst prison of all. That is not my opinion. That is Epictetus. And if it stings, good. It should sting, because the sting means you recognize the truth in it. And truth, even when it hurts, is the first step toward everything that comes next. So here is where we are. The old you is dead. You are sitting in the ashes of who you were, the kind one, the patient one, the understanding one, the one who carried everyone and was carried by no one. That person is gone. And the question isn't, can I get him back? The question is, what do I build now? Because you are going to build something. That is not optional. You are alive. You are conscious. You are here, watching this at whatever hour it is, in whatever city you are in whatever state of mind you are in. You are going to build. The only question is what. And for the rest of this video, all 80 minutes of it, I am going to show you exactly what to build. Not a new personality, not a mask, not some fake version of confidence that falls apart the moment someone tests it. I am going to show you how to build the version of yourself that cannot be exploited, cannot be manipulated, cannot be broken by the same weapons they used last time. And I am going to do it using the same philosophy that emperors and slaves used to survive impossible circumstances. Stoicism. Not the modern, watered-down, just stay calm version of Stoicism that people post on Instagram with pictures of marble statues. The real thing. The brutal, honest, uncomfortable, life-altering philosophy that turned Marcus Aurelius into the most powerful man on earth, who still chose discipline over pleasure. The philosophy that turned Epictetus from a slave into a teacher, whose words are still quoted 2,000 years later. The philosophy that turned Seneca, a man who was exiled, who lost everything, who watched his own world collapse, into someone who could write with absolute calm. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. That philosophy, that is what we are going to use. And it starts with the first thing you need to rebuild, the first wall of your new self, your mouth. Pillar 1, your mouth. This is where it begins. Not your emotions, not your finances, not your mindset. Your mouth, because your mouth is where the old you leaked power every single day without realizing it. Think about it. How many times did you explain yourself to someone who did not ask for an explanation? How many times did you defend your choices to someone who had no right to question them? How many times did you say yes when every cell in your body was screaming no? How many times did you fill a silence with words, not because you had something to say, but because the silence made you uncomfortable? Because you were afraid that if you stopped talking they would leave? They would judge? They would realize that maybe, just maybe, you were not as confident as you pretended to be. Your mouth betrayed you. Every single day. Not because you said bad things, not because you lied or gossiped or spoke with cruelty. No. Your mouth betrayed you because it gave away information that should have stayed inside. It gave away your doubts. It gave away your fears. It gave away your need for approval. And the people around you, the ones who used your kindness, they listened. Not to help you. They listened to learn you. To study you. To understand exactly which buttons to press. And you handed them the manual. Every time you over-explained, you showed them your insecurity. Every time you apologized for something that did not need an apology, you showed them that your boundaries were negotiable. Every time you filled a silence, because you could not stand the discomfort, you showed them that you would always be the one to bend first. Your mouth was an open door. And they walked right in. Epictetus said something about this that most people overlook. He said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Now, most people hear that and think, oh, that is a cute saying about being a good listener. It is not cute. It is a survival strategy. Epictetus was teaching something that the most powerful people in history already knew. Silence is not the absence of power. Silence is the concentration of power. When you speak, you reveal. When you are silent, you observe. When you speak, you give the other person data. When you are silent, you collect data. When you speak, you become predictable. When you are silent, you become unknowable. And an unknowable person cannot be manipulated, because manipulation requires a map. It requires knowing what the other person wants, what they fear, what triggers them, and every word you speak is a piece of that map. The old you handed out the map for free. The new you burns the map. Let me give you a practical example. Think about the last argument you had, the last real one, the one that left you drained and frustrated, and replaying the conversation in your head for hours afterward. Now think about how much you talked. You explained your side. You defended your actions. You brought up examples. You referenced the past. You tried to make them understand your perspective. And what did they do? They did not listen. They waited for you to finish, so they could say what they were already planning to say before you opened your mouth. Every word you spoke in that argument was wasted energy. Not because your points were wrong. Your points were probably valid. Your feelings were probably justified. But it did not matter, because you were playing chess with someone who was playing checkers. You were trying to have a thoughtful conversation with someone who was trying to win. And in a game where one person wants understanding and the other person wants victory, the one who wants victory always wins, unless you change the game. And the way you change the game is devastatingly simple. You stop talking. Not forever. Not about everything. Not in some passive-aggressive way where you pout and slam doors and hope they notice. No. You stop talking strategically. You stop explaining yourself to people who have already made up their mind about you. You stop defending your choices to people who are not affected by your choices. You stop filling silences that don't need to be filled. You stop answering questions that are not asked in good faith. And what happens when you do this? Something incredible. Something the old you would never believe. The room shifts. The dynamic changes. The person who used to walk all over you suddenly pauses. They look at you differently. They start choosing their words more carefully. They start second-guessing themselves. Not because you threatened them. Not because you raised your voice or issued an ultimatum. Because your silence introduced uncertainty. And uncertainty is the one thing manipulators cannot handle. A manipulator needs you to be predictable. They need to know that if they push this button, you will react this way. If they say this thing, you will apologize. If they ignore you for 3 days, you will be the one to reach out first. That is their playbook. And it works perfectly, as long as you keep playing your role. But the moment you go silent, the moment you do not explain, do not react, do not chase, do not apologize, do not fill the space, their playbook is useless, and they panic, not visibly. They will not show it. But inside, they are scrambling, because the version of you they knew, the kind one, the one who always came back, is not responding, and they do not know what to do with that. That silence, your silence, is the first brick of your new self. Now, I want to be very clear about something. I am not telling you to become cold. I am not telling you to never speak again, or to treat people with cruelty, or to weaponize silence as a form of punishment. That is not Stoicism. That is manipulation wearing a different mask. What I am telling you is this. Learn to speak only when your words improve upon the silence. That is a principle, not a rule. A principle. It means that before you open your mouth, before you explain, before you defend, before you react, you pause. And in that pause, you ask yourself one question. Will these words make my position stronger or weaker? If stronger, speak. If weaker, stay silent. If you are not sure, stay silent. Silence is the default. Speech is the exception. That is how Marcus Aurelius operated. This man was the emperor of Rome, the most powerful human being on the planet at the time. He could have spoken whenever he wanted, about whatever he wanted, to whoever he wanted. But he chose silence. He wrote in his meditations, "Be like the cliff against which the waves constantly break. It stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it." He did not say argue with the waves. He did not say explain to the waves why they should stop. He did not say try to understand the waves' perspective. He said stand firm. That is your first lesson. Stand firm. Not with aggression, not with force, with silence. Seneca adds another layer to this. He wrote in his letters from a Stoic, "True power is sitting back and observing everything with logic. True power is restraint. If words control you, that means everyone else can control you. Breathe and allow things to pass." Read that again in your mind. If words control you, that means everyone else can control you. That one sentence should terrify you. Because if someone can make you react with a sentence, if someone can ruin your day with a text message, if someone can pull you into a 2-hour argument with a single comment, then you are not free. You are remote controlled. And the remote is in their hand. The old you lived like this. Someone said something hurtful, and you spent the next 3 hours crafting a response in your head. Someone ignored you, and you spent the next 2 days analyzing what you did wrong. Someone raised their voice, and you immediately lowered yours. You were a puppet, a kind, well-intentioned, good-hearted puppet. But a puppet nonetheless, and Seneca is telling you right now, across 2,000 years of history, cut the strings. Not by fighting, not by screaming, not by becoming the villain, by breathing, by pausing, by letting the words pass through you instead of into you. That is mastery of the mouth. Not learning what to say, learning what not to say. And here is the beautiful irony. When you master your mouth, when you stop giving away your power through unnecessary speech, something unexpected happens. When you finally do speak, people listen. Not because your voice got louder, not because your words got fancier. Because scarcity creates value. A person who talks constantly, their words are cheap, background noise, wallpaper. A person who speaks rarely, every sentence carries weight. Every word lands. People lean in. People pay attention. People remember. Think about the most powerful person you have ever met in real life. Not on a screen. In real life. Were they the loudest in the room? No. They were quiet, observant, choosing their moments. And when they spoke, even if it was just a single sentence, the room shifted. That is what you are building. Not a louder voice, a heavier one. And it starts today. It starts right now. It starts with the next conversation you have after this video. Pause before you speak. Ask yourself, is this necessary? If no, say nothing. And watch what happens. Now let me tell you something about the days and weeks after you begin practicing this. It will feel wrong. Your body will fight you. Your chest will tighten. Your jaw will clench. Every instinct you have will scream, say something. Explain yourself. Fix this. Fill the silence before it swallows you whole. That discomfort is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. That discomfort is the old you dying. It is withdrawal. The same way an addict feels pain when they stop using the substance that was destroying them. Your substance was oversharing. Your substance was people-pleasing. Your substance was the temporary relief that came from saying the right thing at the right time, to make someone else comfortable at the expense of your own peace. And now, you are cutting it off. Of course it hurts, but the hurt is temporary. What you build on the other side of that hurt is permanent. Every day you practice strategic silence, the muscle gets stronger. The discomfort gets smaller. The instinct to explain yourself gets weaker. And the new instinct, the instinct to pause, to observe, to choose your words like a surgeon chooses a scalpel, gets sharper. Within weeks, you will notice something. People treat you differently, not because you demanded respect, not because you told them how to treat you, because you stopped teaching them that disrespect was acceptable. Read that again. You stopped teaching them that disrespect was acceptable. Every time the old you tolerated a joke at your expense and laughed it off, you were teaching them. Every time the old you accepted a half-hearted apology that you knew was insincere, you were teaching them. Every time the old you stayed in a room where you were being ignored, you were teaching them. You were the teacher. And the lesson you taught was this: you can treat me however you want, and I will still be here. Silence changes the lesson. Now the lesson is, I am no longer available for that. No announcement. No dramatic exit. No explanation. Just absence. Just stillness. Just the quiet removal of your energy from spaces that do not deserve it. That is Pillar 1. Master your mouth and you take back the first piece of your power. Now let us move to something harder. Pillar 2. Your mood. If your mouth was the door they walked through to exploit you, your mood was the house they lived in, rent-free. And cleaning that house is going to require something most people are not willing to give. Honesty. Brutal, uncomfortable, no excuses honesty about how you have been managing your emotions, or rather, how you have not been managing them. Here is what the old you did with emotions. Someone hurt you. You felt the pain immediately. It hit your chest like a fist. Your face changed. Your body changed. Your breathing changed. And then within seconds, you made a decision. You buried it. Not because you dealt with it. Not because you processed it. Not because you sat with the emotion and let it pass through you the way the Stoics teach. No. You buried it because dealing with it was too dangerous. If you showed anger, they would call you aggressive. If you showed sadness, they would call you weak. If you showed frustration, they would use it as evidence that you were the problem. So you buried it. You put it in a box. You put the box in a room. You locked the room, and you went back to smiling. And the world said, look at him. So calm, so composed, so emotionally mature. But you were not calm. You were full of every emotion you swallowed because the world punished you for showing them. Full of every insult you absorbed because responding was not safe. Full of every time you were disrespected and chose peace because you were terrified of conflict. You were not at peace. You were a container, and containers have a limit. Seneca wrote about this with terrifying accuracy. He wrote, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." Now, most people read that and think, yes, anger is bad. We should stay calm. But Seneca was saying something deeper. He was not saying, do not feel anger. He was saying, do not let anger make decisions for you. There is a difference. A massive difference. The old you did one of two things with anger. You either exploded, which happened rarely, but when it did, the damage was catastrophic, and you spent weeks apologizing. Or you imploded, which happened constantly, and no one noticed because you had trained yourself to collapse inward rather than outward. Both are failures of emotional management. The Stoics did not teach suppression. Let me say that again because this is the most misunderstood thing about Stoicism. The Stoics did not teach suppression. Marcus Aurelius felt anger. He writes about it. He was furious with people who betrayed him. He was frustrated by the endless demands of ruling an empire. He was exhausted by human stupidity and selfishness. But he did not suppress those feelings. He processed them. He sat with them. He examined them. He wrote about them in his journal at night. He asked himself questions. Why am I angry? Is this anger productive? Will acting on this anger make my situation better or worse? Is the thing I am angry about within my control or outside of it? That is emotional discipline, not the absence of emotion, the management of emotion. And the difference between those two things is the difference between a man who appears strong but is slowly crumbling inside, and a man who is genuinely unshakable because he has learned how to feel without being controlled by feeling. The old you was the first type, appearing strong while crumbling. The new you will be the second type, actually strong because you finally learned how to sit with pain without letting it make your decisions. Here is how. Step 1. Name the emotion. This sounds simple. It is not. Most people cannot name what they feel. They say, I feel bad. I feel off. I feel weird. I feel stressed. Those are not emotions. Those are categories. Vague labels that keep you disconnected from what is actually happening inside you. A Stoic names the exact emotion. Not, I feel bad. But I feel resentment because I gave more than I received, and I am angry at myself for allowing it. Not, I feel stressed. But I feel fear because I am uncertain about my future, and I do not trust myself to handle what comes next. Not, I feel off. But I feel grief because the person I used to be is gone, and I have not yet become the person I want to be, and the space in between feels like nothing. Name it, specifically, without judgment. You are not weak for feeling resentment. You are not broken for feeling fear. You are not pathetic for feeling grief. You are human, and humans feel things. The old you was so terrified of being seen as weak that you refused to even acknowledge what you were feeling. You skipped the naming step entirely and went straight to burying. And the thing about buried emotions is they do not die. They grow. They grow in the dark. They grow roots. They attach themselves to other buried emotions. And eventually they form a mass so large and so heavy that you cannot carry it anymore. And that is when you explode or shut down or go numb or say things you do not mean to people who do not deserve it. That is not a character flaw. That is the natural consequence of never processing what you feel. Epictetus understood this perfectly. He said, "It is not the things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about those things." And what was your judgment about your own emotions? Your judgment was that they were dangerous, that showing them made you vulnerable, that feeling them fully would open a door you could not close. So you judged your emotions as threats, and you treated them accordingly. You locked them away. You built walls around them. You pretended they did not exist, and all the while they were eating you alive from the inside. Step 2. Separate the event from the emotion. This is pure Stoicism. This is the core of everything. Something happens. Someone says something cruel. Someone ignores you. Someone breaks a promise. Someone chooses someone else over you. That is the event. Then your brain adds a layer, a story, an interpretation. They said, that because they do not respect me. They ignored me because I am not important. They broke their promise because I am not worth keeping promises to. They chose someone else because I was not enough. That is the emotion. And notice, the emotion is not caused by the event. It is caused by the story you told yourself about the event. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you will not feel harmed." Do not feel harmed, and you have not been. This is not toxic positivity. He is not saying pretend bad things do not happen. He is saying your interpretation of the event is where your suffering lives. Change the interpretation, and you change the suffering. Someone ignored your message? Event. They did not reply. Your story? They do not care about me. I am not important. I always get treated this way. Nobody values me. The Stoic reframe? They did not reply. I do not know why. Their silence tells me nothing about my value. I will not build a narrative out of missing information. I will focus on what I can control, which is my own next action. That is the difference. The old you lived in stories. Every event was wrapped in layers of meaning and interpretation and emotional reaction until the actual event was invisible underneath all the noise. The new you sees events clearly, bare, stripped of narrative, and then chooses, consciously and deliberately, what meaning to assign. That is not cold. That is not robotic. That is not emotionless. That is power. Step 3. Let the emotion pass through you. This is the hardest step and the most important. When you feel anger, when you feel hurt, when you feel that familiar sinking in your chest that tells you someone just disrespected you or dismissed you or treated you like you do not matter, the old you had 2 responses: react immediately or bury immediately. The new you has a 3rd option: feel it, fully, without acting on it. Sit with the anger. Let it be there. Do not push it away. Do not analyze it yet. Do not try to fix it. Just let it exist in your body. It will be uncomfortable. Your hands might shake. Your jaw might tighten. Your chest might feel like it is being squeezed. That is okay. That is the emotion moving through you. And if you let it, if you do not fight it and do not feed it, it will pass. Every emotion passes. Every single one. Anger passes. Grief passes. Resentment passes. Fear passes. They only stay when you hold on to them, when you replay the event, when you rehearse what you should have said, when you build imaginary arguments in your head and win them all brilliantly, but still feel terrible afterward. That is you holding on to the emotion. That is you keeping it alive. The Stoic practice is to let it arrive, name it, feel it, and then let it go. Not in 5 seconds, maybe in 5 minutes, maybe in 5 hours, maybe in 5 days for the really heavy ones. But it goes. If you let it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" He was telling you that the original event, the insult, the betrayal, the disrespect, is usually small. A sentence, a gesture, a moment. But your reaction to it, that can last days, weeks, months, years. You can spend an entire year angry about something that took someone 3 seconds to do to you. That is not justice. That is imprisonment. And the prison guard is not the person who hurt you. The prison guard is you. So let it pass. Feel it. Name it. Breathe through it. And then let it pass. Not because they deserve your forgiveness, because you deserve your freedom. Step 4. Respond. Do not react. There's a difference between responding and reacting. Reacting is instant. It is emotional. It is the first thing that comes to your mind. It is the text you send at midnight that you regret at 7 in the morning. It is the words that come out of your mouth before your brain has finished processing what just happened. Responding is delayed. It is intentional. It is what comes after the pause. After you have named the emotion. After you have separated the event from the story. After you have let the initial wave pass through you. A reaction is controlled by the other person. A response is controlled by you. Every time you react, you hand the remote control to whoever triggered you. They pushed a button, and you performed exactly as expected. Every time you respond, you keep the remote in your own hand. They pushed a button, and nothing happened. Or rather, something happened, but it was not what they expected. It was measured, deliberate, calm, and infinitely more powerful. The old you was reactive, a puppet on strings. Pull this string and he apologizes. Pull that string and he explains. Pull another string and he comes running back. The new you is responsive. The strings have been cut. The puppeteer reaches for them and finds nothing. And that moment, that confusion in their eyes when they realize the old playbook no longer works, that moment is worth more than any argument you have ever won. Practice the pause. Between the event and your action, there is a space. In that space is your freedom. In that space is your power. In that space is everything the old you never accessed because he was too busy reacting to realize it was there. That space is where the new you lives. Learn to live there. Now let me tell you what happens when you master your mood. The world does not get easier. Let me be honest with you. People do not suddenly become kinder. They do not stop trying to trigger you. They do not stop testing your boundaries. But something inside you changes. You stop caring about their tests. Not in a numb way. Not in a shutdown way. In a genuine way. You see someone trying to provoke you, and you feel nothing. Not because you suppressed the feeling, but because the feeling genuinely is not there anymore. The button they are pressing is no longer connected to anything. That is when you know the transformation is real. When the things that used to destroy you become noise. Background static. Something that happens around you, but not inside you. Marcus Aurelius experienced this. Surrounded by enemies at court. People who plotted against him. People who wanted him dead. People who smiled to his face and schemed behind his back. And he wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it, not what other people make it, what your thoughts make it." He was the most powerful man in the world, and his greatest power was not his army. It was his ability to choose which thoughts to entertain and which to release. That is what emotional mastery gives you, not the ability to stop feeling, the ability to choose which feelings get to stay. That is Pillar 2. Master your mood, and you take back the second piece of your power. Let us move forward. Pillar 3. Your money. Now this might seem like an unusual topic for a Stoic philosophy video. Most people think Stoicism is only about emotions and mindset. They think the ancient philosophers had nothing to say about money. They are wrong. The Stoics had a great deal to say about money. And what they said is more relevant today than it has ever been. Because money is not just money. Money is freedom. Money is options. Money is the ability to walk away from a job that disrespects you, a relationship that drains you, a city that suffocates you, a life that does not belong to you. And the old you. The old you had a terrible relationship with money. Not because you were lazy. Not because you were stupid. Not because you lacked ambition. Because your kindness bled into your finances. Think about it. How many times did you pay for things you should not have paid for because you felt guilty saying no? How many times did you lend money to people who never paid you back and you never asked because you did not want to make things awkward? How many times did you stay in a job that underpaid you because you were afraid that asking for more would make you seem greedy or ungrateful? How many times did you spend money to make other people comfortable? Picking up the bill. Buying gifts you could not afford. Saying yes to trips and dinners and events that your bank account could not handle because you did not want to be the one who said, "I cannot afford that." Your kindness cost you money. Literal money. Real dollars and euros and pounds that left your pocket and never came back. And no one will ever mention this because it is uncomfortable. People do not like talking about the financial cost of being too nice. It feels shallow, it feels petty. But it is not petty. It is survival. Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in Rome. He had more money than most senators, more property than most governors. And yet he lived with deliberate simplicity. He wore simple clothes. He ate simple meals. He slept on a hard bed, not because he could not afford luxury, because he refused to need it. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little who is poor, but the man who craves more." That is not a cute quote about gratitude. That is a financial strategy. Seneca understood that the more you need, the more you can be controlled. If you need the expensive apartment, you cannot leave the job that pays for it. If you need the luxury car, you cannot take the risk that might change your life. If you need the approval that comes from spending money on other people, you will always be broke. Need is a chain, and the old you was wrapped in chains made of financial generosity that no one asked for and no one appreciated. Let me ask you something directly. Right now in your life, how much money do you have saved? Not invested, not in things. Saved. Cash. Accessible. If you lost your job tomorrow, how many months could you survive? If someone you depended on financially disappeared from your life overnight, would you be okay? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, good. Sit with that discomfort, because that discomfort is information. It is telling you that your financial foundation is weak, and a person with a weak financial foundation cannot afford to set boundaries, because boundaries have a cost. Let me explain what I mean. Imagine you are in a job where your boss disrespects you daily. He talks down to you. He takes credit for your work. He makes you feel small. The old you tolerated it, smiled through it, went home and complained about it, but never did anything because you needed the paycheck. Now imagine you have 12 months of expenses saved, sitting in an account, untouched. A wall of financial security between you and desperation. That changes everything, because now when your boss disrespects you, you have options. You can speak up. You can set a boundary. You can walk away. You can say this is not acceptable and mean it, because you are not terrified of the consequences. Money did not make you braver. Money made bravery affordable. That is what the Stoics understood. Financial discipline is not about greed. It is not about accumulation. It is not about becoming rich for the sake of being rich. It is about building a wall between you and desperation, because a desperate person cannot be principled. A desperate person says yes when they mean no. A desperate person tolerates disrespect because the alternative is worse. A desperate person stays in situations that destroy them because leaving costs money they do not have. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." And the practical translation of that is this: if you can reduce what you need, you reduce what others can use against you. Every subscription you do not need is a chain. Every impulse purchase is a chain. Every dinner you bought to impress someone who forgot about it the next day is a chain. Cut the chains. Not because spending money is wrong, but because spending money unconsciously is enslavement. The new you is intentional with money, not cheap. Intentional. There is a difference. A cheap person hoards money out of fear. An intentional person directs money with purpose. A cheap person says no to everything because they are afraid of losing what they have. An intentional person says no to most things so they can say yes to the things that actually matter. Here is what financial discipline looks like in practice. First, pay yourself before you pay anyone else. The old you paid everyone first. Bills, friends, family, subscriptions, restaurants, and whatever was left, if anything was left, that was yours. The new you reverses this. The moment money enters your account, a portion, even if it is small, goes directly into savings. before bills, before everything. You pay yourself first, because you are the most important investment you will ever make. This is not selfish. This is self-preservation. Second, stop lending money you cannot afford to lose. The old you lent money because saying no felt cruel, and then you spent weeks silently resenting the person who never paid you back while pretending everything was fine. The new you has a rule. If you cannot afford to give it as a gift, do not lend it. Period. If someone asks for money and you can afford to lose it and you want to help, give it freely with no expectation of return. If you cannot afford to lose it, say no. Without guilt, without explanation. You do not owe anyone an explanation for protecting your financial stability. Third, build the wall. The wall is your emergency fund. 3 months minimum, 6 months ideal, 12 months if you want true freedom. This is not exciting. This is not glamorous. No one will make a movie about the person who quietly saved money for 2 years. But that wall is the single most powerful thing you will ever build because it turns every boundary you set from a bluff into a fact. Without the wall, your boundaries are requests. With the wall, your boundaries are declarations. Fourth, invest in yourself before you invest in anything else. Books, courses, skills, tools, health. These are not expenses. These are investments with the highest return you will ever find. The old you spent money making other people comfortable. The new you spends money making yourself capable. A skill cannot be taken from you. Knowledge cannot be repossessed. The investment you make in your own mind pays dividends for the rest of your life. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a great deal of it." Replace the word time with money, and the truth is the same. It is not that you do not earn enough. It is that you waste a great deal of what you earn on people and things that do not contribute to the person you are becoming. That stops today. Not tomorrow. Today. Open a savings account if you do not have one. Set up an automatic transfer, even if it is small. Even if it is embarrassingly small. The amount does not matter. The habit matters. The identity matters. You are becoming a person who pays themselves first. You are becoming a person who does not need anyone's money to survive. You are becoming a person whose generosity is a choice, not a compulsion. That is financial discipline. That is Pillar 3. Master your money, and you take back the third piece of your power. And now, we arrive at the final pillar, the one that holds all the others together, the one that, without it, everything else collapses. Pillar 4, your mind. If your mouth was the door, if your mood was the house, if your money was the wall around the house, then your mind is the architect. Your mind designed everything. Your mind designed the belief that being kind would be enough. Your mind designed the pattern of giving without receiving. Your mind designed the story that you were not worthy of the same treatment you gave others. Every single thing that happened to you, every pattern of exploitation and self-abandonment and emotional suppression started in your mind, not in theirs. Yours. I know that is hard to hear. I know you want to blame them. And parts of what happened were their fault. Their cruelty was their choice. Their manipulation was their responsibility. Their decision to exploit your kindness says everything about them and nothing about you. But your decision to keep showing up to the table where you were never fed, that was your mind. Your decision to stay in relationships that drained you, that was your mind. Your decision to interpret their silence as your failure, that was your mind. And that means your mind is both the problem and the solution. The thing that built the prison is the same thing that can tear it down, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If your thoughts are, "I am not enough," "I must earn love," "I must prove my value through sacrifice," then your soul becomes colored with insufficiency. Everything you see is filtered through that lens. Every interaction becomes evidence that you are not enough. Every kindness you receive feels like a fluke. Every moment of peace feels temporary. But if your thoughts are, "I am enough as I am," "My value is not determined by what I give," "My peace is not negotiable," then your soul becomes colored with sufficiency. The same events happen, but you interpret them differently. You see the same world through a different lens. And that different lens changes everything. This is not law of attraction nonsense. I am not telling you to think positive thoughts, and the universe will rearrange itself for you. I am telling you something far more practical. Your thoughts create your emotional baseline. Your emotional baseline determines your behavior. Your behavior shapes your life. Change the thoughts, and you change the life. Not overnight. Not by repeating affirmations in a mirror. Not by pretending you believe something you do not. Through practice, through repetition, through the slow, deliberate process of catching a negative thought, examining it, questioning it, and replacing it with something more accurate. Not more positive, more accurate, because the old you did not have positive or negative thoughts. The old you had inaccurate thoughts. You thought, "I must be kind to everyone." Inaccurate. You must be kind to people who have earned it. You thought, "If I set boundaries, I will lose people." Inaccurate. You will lose the wrong people. The right ones will respect you more. You thought, "My value comes from what I give." Inaccurate. Your value is inherent. It exists whether you give anything or not. You thought, "If I stop explaining myself, people will misunderstand me." Inaccurate. People who care about you will ask. People who do not care were never going to understand anyway. These were not negative thoughts. They were inaccurate thoughts. And inaccurate thoughts are the most dangerous kind because they feel true. They feel true because you have been thinking them for years, maybe decades. They are so familiar that they feel like facts, but they are not facts. They are habits, mental habits, and habits can be broken. Epictetus gave us the most practical tool for this. He said, "Make it your study to confront every harsh impression with the words, 'This is an impression,' and not the thing it claims to be. Then test it by those rules which you possess, and first and chiefly by this, whether the impression relates to those things which are within our power, or to things which are not within our power. And if it relates to anything which is not within our power, be ready with the answer, 'It is nothing to me.' Let me translate that into modern language. A thought enters your mind. Any thought. I am not good enough. They do not care about me. I will never be successful. This always happens to me. Step 1. Name it as a thought. Say to yourself, this is a thought, not a fact, a thought. Step 2. Test it. Ask yourself, is this within my control? Can I do anything about this right now? Step 3. If it is within your control, act on it. If it is not within your control, release it. Let it pass. It is noise. It is not relevant. It is not useful. It does not serve the person you are becoming. That is it. That is the entire Stoic mental framework in 3 steps. Name it. Test it. Act on it, or release it. Simple to understand, difficult to practice, but transformative when you commit to it. Because here is what happens when you practice this consistently. The volume of your mind decreases. Right now, your mind is probably loud, constant narration, constant judgment, constant replaying of the past and rehearsing of the future. A never-ending stream of thoughts, most of which are repetitive, most of which are inaccurate, most of which serve no purpose other than to keep you anxious about things you cannot control. But when you start naming thoughts, testing them, and releasing the ones that are outside your control, the volume drops. Not to zero. Your mind will never be silent. That is not the goal. The goal is to turn the screaming into a whisper. The goal is to go from a mind that controls you to a mind that you control. And when you get there, when the noise drops low enough for you to hear your own clarity, you will understand something that the Stoics understood 2,000 years ago. You do not need anyone's approval to be valuable. You do not need anyone's presence to be complete. You do not need anyone's validation to know who you are. Those needs, the need for approval, the need for presence, the need for validation, those were the old you. Those were the chains. Those were the strings the puppeteer used to make you dance. The new you has cut those strings. The new you stands alone, not because he has no one, but because he doesn't need anyone. And paradoxically, that is exactly when the right people start showing up, because the right people are not attracted to need. They are attracted to wholeness. A person who needs you is heavy. A person who chooses you is powerful. The old, you needed people. The new you chooses them. And the ones who are not chosen will feel the absence. They will reach for the old version of you and find nothing. And they will not understand why. But you will understand. Because you are no longer the person they remember. That person is dead. And what replaced him is something they were never prepared for. Now let me bring all four pillars together, because individually each pillar is powerful. But together, they create something that cannot be broken. Your mouth gives you silence, the power to choose when and how you reveal yourself. Your mood gives you stillness. The power to feel without being controlled by feeling. Your money gives you freedom, the power to walk away from anything that does not serve you. Your mind gives you clarity, the power to see reality as it is, not as your fears paint it. Silence, stillness, freedom, clarity. Those are the four walls of the person you are building. And when all four walls are standing, the structure is complete. Not perfect. You will never be perfect. Perfection is not the goal. The goal is unbreakable. And unbreakable does not mean you cannot be hurt. It means you cannot be destroyed by the same thing twice. It means the lessons you learned were absorbed. The cracks were filled with gold. The wounds became armor. That is kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold. The philosophy that says broken things are not ruined. They are upgraded. The cracks do not diminish the value. They increase it. Because a piece that has been broken and repaired with gold is more valuable than a piece that was never broken at all. You are kintsugi. The things they did to you, the exploitation, the disrespect, the betrayal, the silence when you needed noise, and noise when you needed silence, all of it cracked you. But you are filling those cracks with gold. The gold of discipline, the gold of silence, the gold of emotional mastery, the gold of financial independence, the gold of a trained and deliberate mind. And when the gold hardens, when the cracks become the strongest parts of you rather than the weakest, you will look in the mirror and see someone entirely new. Not the kind person who gave everything away, not the broken person who went numb in a dark room. Someone else. Someone with kind eyes but firm boundaries. Someone with a gentle voice that carries the weight of a man who has chosen every word carefully. Someone with calm hands that will help those who deserve it and close the door on those who do not. That is who you are becoming, and the journey there is not easy. I will not lie to you. There will be days when the old patterns pull at you. Days when you want to explain yourself. Days when you want to react. Days when someone says exactly the right thing to trigger exactly the wrong response, and you feel yourself slipping back into who you were. That is normal. Growth is not linear. It is not a straight line from broken to whole. It is messy. It is 2 steps forward and 1 step back. It is catching yourself mid-reaction and choosing to pause even though every instinct is screaming at you to respond. But here is the difference. The old you did not catch himself. The old you reacted before he even realized he was reacting. The old you was asleep at the wheel. The new you catches it. The new you sees the trigger coming. The new you feels the old instinct rise and says no. Not this time. I know what happens if I go down that road. I have been down that road 1,000 times, and it always ends in the same place. I am choosing a different road. That awareness, that moment of catching yourself, that is the proof that the transformation is real, not the absence of triggers, the ability to see them and choose differently. Marcus Aurelius was not born wise. He was not born stoic. He was a man who struggled with anger, with frustration, with the desire for approval, with the temptation to give up. But he practiced, every day, every night, writing in his journal, reminding himself of the principles, catching himself, correcting himself, starting again. He wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." He did not write that because his life was easy. He wrote it because his life was hard, and he needed to remind himself that the struggle was worth it. Your struggle is worth it. The discomfort of learning silence is worth it. The pain of sitting with emotions instead of burying them is worth it. The discipline of saving money instead of spending it is worth it. The effort of training your mind to think accurately instead of reactively is worth it. Because on the other side of all that discomfort is a version of you that the old you could not even imagine. A version that does not need approval to feel valuable. A version that does not need noise to feel alive. A version that does not need anyone's permission to take up space. A version that walks into a room and changes the energy not because of what he says, but because of what he carries in his silence. That version exists, right now, inside you, underneath the old patterns and the old fears and the old beliefs. He is waiting. He has been waiting for a long time. And this video, these 80 minutes, this journey through the 4 pillars, this is not what creates him. He was always there. This is just what wakes him up. So let me talk to him directly. Let me talk to the version of you that is waking up right now. The one listening beneath the surface. The one who recognized himself in every word of this video. The one who felt something shift, something small but real, somewhere in his chest about 15 minutes ago, and has been leaning in ever since. I see you, and I want to tell you something that no one has ever told you. You were not too kind. You were kind to the wrong people. Your kindness was never the problem. Your targeting was the problem. You gave the most valuable thing you had, your patience, your attention, your love, your loyalty, to people who had done nothing to earn it. You treated your kindness like it was infinite, like it cost nothing, like you could hand it out to every person who walked into your life without ever running out. But kindness is not infinite. Kindness is energy, and energy is finite. And finite things must be protected, guarded, invested wisely. The new you still has kindness, more than before, actually, because now your kindness is not a reflex, it is a decision. It is not something that leaks out of you uncontrollably. It is something you aim, deliberately, at the people and causes and moments that deserve it. And that makes your kindness more valuable, not less. A person who is kind to everyone is kind to no one, because their kindness is so diluted, so spread thin, so freely given that it carries no weight. It is expected. It is taken for granted. It is background noise. But a person who is selective with their kindness, a person who you have to earn it from, when that person is kind to you, it means something. It lands. It stays. Because you know it was a choice, not a compulsion. That is the paradox. By being kind to fewer people, you become kinder. By giving less freely, you give more meaningfully. The old you sprayed kindness everywhere like a broken sprinkler. The new you aims it like a laser. And the difference is everything. Now let me talk about the people you lost, because you lost people. On this journey, you will lose people. Some you have already lost. And it hurts. I am not going to pretend it does not. There were people in your life who were only there because the old you was useful to them. And when the new you stopped being useful in the same way, they left. Or they pulled away. Or they got angry. Or they tried to guilt you into going back to who you were. And some of them were people you loved. That is the hardest part of transformation. Not the discipline. Not the practice. Not the discomfort of sitting with your emotions or the frustration of watching your savings grow slowly. The hardest part is watching people leave because they only loved the version of you that was convenient for them. Seneca knew this. He lost friends when he was exiled. He lost friends when he returned. He lost friends when he stopped being politically useful. And he wrote, "One of the most beautiful qualities of true friendship is to understand and to be understood." Read that carefully. To understand and to be understood. The people who left, they understood the old you, the convenient you, the yes you, but they never understood you, and you never felt understood by them either. Be honest. You felt appreciated. You felt needed. You felt valued for what you did, but you never felt understood for who you were. Because you never showed them who you were. You showed them the mask, the kind mask, the patient mask, the always available mask, and they fell in love with the mask, not with you. So when the mask comes off, of course they leave. They were never in a relationship with you. They were in a relationship with your performance, and their departure, as painful as it is proof that you are on the right path. Because the people who stay, the ones who see the new you, the quieter, firmer, more deliberate you, and choose to stay anyway, those people are real. Those people are worth your new kindness. Those people earned the laser, and there will not be many of them. Maybe 3, maybe 5, maybe 1. That is enough. One real person who understands you is worth more than 100 people who only understood what you could do for them. Quality over quantity. In friendship, in love, in everything. That is Stoic wisdom, not in theory, in practice. So let me return one last time to Marcus Aurelius. This man had every reason to be bitter. He ruled an empire that was falling apart. He fought wars he did not want to fight. He was surrounded by liars and schemers and people who wanted him dead. And every night he sat alone in his tent or his room, and he wrote. Not speeches, not laws, not letters to his enemies. He wrote to himself. And in those private pages, those pages that were never meant to be read by anyone, he wrote something that I want to leave you with. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That is the final lesson. Stop debating. Stop planning. Stop thinking about who you want to become. Become him. Right now. starting today. Starting with the next word you choose not to say. Starting with the next emotion you choose to process instead of bury. Starting with the next dollar you choose to save instead of spend. Starting with the next thought you choose to question instead of obey. You do not need anyone's permission. You do not need a perfect plan. You do not need motivation. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are temporary. You need discipline. Discipline is a decision, and decisions are permanent. Decide to master your mouth. Decide to master your mood. Decide to master your money. Decide to master your mind. 4 decisions, 4 pillars, 4 walls. And behind those walls, standing in the quiet, standing in the gold light of a man who broke and rebuilt himself with intention, is someone they will never forget. Not because he was loud, not because he was aggressive, not because he announced his transformation to the world, but because he walked into a room one day and the energy was different. His eyes were different. His silence was different. The way he held himself was different. The way he spoke when he chose to speak was different. And they looked at him, and they thought, I know him. I recognize that face. But something is different. Something changed. Something shifted when I was not paying attention. And they will try to figure out what it was. They will try to name it. They will ask questions. They will probe. They will test. And he will smile. Gently. The way a man smiles who has nothing to prove. And he will say nothing. Because that is the final mastery. Not explaining your transformation to the people who caused it. Just living it. Quietly. Powerfully. Permanently. They remember the old you. But he is dead. And what stands in his place? Something they were never prepared for. Something built from silence and stillness and discipline and gold. Something unbreakable. You. The real you. Finally awake. Finally here. Finally free. And you are only getting started. Seneca wrote one final thing that I will leave with you. He wrote it near the end of his life when he had lost almost everything and gained the only thing that mattered. He wrote, "Begin at once to live and count each separate day as a separate life. Today is day 1, not of a new habit, not of a new routine, of a new life." The old one ended somewhere in the middle of this video. You felt it. That quiet click. That small shift. That moment when something settled inside you and you thought, yes, that is it. That is what I needed to hear. Trust that moment. It was real. And now, walk forward. Not fast, not dramatically, not with announcements or declarations or social media posts about your new beginning. Just walk. One step, then another, then another. Each step quieter than the last, each step firmer than the last, until one day you turn around and see how far you have come, and you realize that the person who started this journey, the kind one, the broken one, the one who gave everything away, is so far behind you that you can barely see him anymore. And you will not feel anger toward him, you will feel gratitude, because he did the only thing he knew how to do. He survived. With kindness and patience and forgiveness, he survived long enough for you to be born. He carried the weight until you were strong enough to carry it yourself. And now you are. So thank him, quietly, in your mind. Thank him for the kindness that kept you alive when nothing else would. Thank him for the patience that bought you time. Thank him for the forgiveness that kept your heart soft enough to still feel something when the numbness finally lifted. And then let him go. He served his purpose. His chapter is over. Yours is just beginning. Rise.